How's everybody doing? Rito here with a special video for a very special someone. This video is dedicated to a dude who I consider my twin brother. Happy birthday to you, man. I love you. This is gonna be ranking all the Ocarina of Time dungeons, which is his favorite game. As you can see, we got the generic setup going on right now. Except we have a special bottom tier, and I'm pretty sure everybody who clicked on this video automatically knows what's going in there the moment they saw it. And a special shout out to my boy Gumbo for helping me with the thumbnail, because God knows it's awful when I try to do it. Anyway, again, happy birthday, dude. Let's get this show on the road, shall we? We'll let the song finish a bit first. I played this on the piano for his birthday last year, and when I recorded it, it was just so bad. Like, I mean, I can play it just fine, but my phone is really, really bad, and the video quality came out just total ass. I still feel bad about it. Anyway, let's start off with inside the Great Deku Tree. Where are you? There you are. Very first level of the game. To me, the Great Deku Tree was... I never noticed it as a kid because I didn't play... Let me get this out of the way. I've said this before. I never played Ocarina of Time as a kid. I watched this dude and his older brother, who's also pretty much my older brother, play the hell out of it. And I'd hide behind the couch whenever they got to places with rededs because I hated those things. But I never owned Ocarina of Time as a kid. I didn't own it until I was already in my preteens on the special edition GameCube version for it that came bundled with Majora's Mask. And even that wasn't mine, so I never got to finish Majora's Mask. To this day, I haven't finished it. So I never noticed as a kid that inside the Great Deku Tree, the way it is because of Ganondorf's curse. Like, all the spiders and all the monsters is because it's literally the Great Deku Tree slowly dying. So that's dark as hell. And that went way over my head when I was younger. I just thought, oh, hey, cool, you know, we're inside a tree and there's nature enemies and whatnot. Where would I put you on the tier list, though? I feel like it did a very good job of explaining, like, getting started in the game. And I vividly remember there being one section that had this tremendous drop. It had water at the bottom of it, and it was like a long time to climb your way back up. But it's not bad, in any sense of the word. I mean, it's good. Do I want to put it... I wouldn't say it's great. So S is going to be best of the best. A is going to be for great. B is going to be for good. C for meh. D for bad, and this is exclusively reserved for a certain something. So, Great Deku Tree, I will put you in good. Dark as hell, but never something you noticed as a kid. The Dongo's Cavern. Man. Makes you wonder. Like, as soon as you enter and you get that view of the entire cavern, it's just got, like, that giant skeleton head looming ahead in the distance. That's metal. So, the kitty fire level. The Dongo's Cavern, when I was younger, had the distinction of scaring the crap out of me because of the... Oh, man, I'm drawing a blank on their names. The statues. Not the Beamos, the... Crap, I cannot recall their names. There's the statues that attack you with, that they charge you with, like, a sword and stuff. Because I remember in that certain section where you had to destroy a bunch of crates or whatnot, and there was one of those goddamn statues hidden among them, and then they just relentlessly charge you once you aggro them. So that scared... I was very easily scared as a kid. That scared the crap out of me. And then there's the implication that again, this goes over your head when you're a kid, even though it's kind of blatantly told, but at the same time, they're subtle about it. That the Gorons are all slowly starving to death because they can't get their food because the cavern's sealed off. Armos, that's their name. Armos. And then the big ones, Armos Knights, I think were not in Ocarina, but they were in Wind Waker. Wind Waker was my Ocarina of Time. That's my favorite Zelda game of all time. But it did its job, and it's very, very different from Inside the Great Deku Tree. Still has that broody, dark atmosphere hanging over it, though. Man, Zelda games nail the atmosphere so good. Alright, so where am I going to put you? Dodongo's Cavern. I'm not a big fan of it as I am of the other ones, but it's not bad. So you can go on the Met here for now. And then the game just went 8 ways bananas. Where we straight up climb up inside a giant fish's butt. Even though we entered through the mouth. Lord Jabu Jabu's belly was a freaking trip, man. Like, there were parts of this dungeon that made me think, like, how the hell is this game ready to eat for everyone? Like, I know the ratings were a lot more lax back then. But, I mean, we're straight up running around his guts. Like, the walls are not walls. They're his freaking innards. And then freaking Princess What's-Her-Face. I haven't played Ocarina of Time in well over 10 years, so I'm kind of drawing blanks on some of the names, even though I played Hyrule Warriors extensively. Swear, I feel like she's the one character whose name I can't remember, despite the fact that she's so annoying. Because there's Saria, Daruk, What's-Her-Face, Impa, and then Naburu. I actually feel kind of bad. Because I know the Zora mech in Breath of the Wild is named after her. Oh, I feel bad. I gotta look this up. Rudo! Right. I never liked her, so that's why my name's always drawn a blank. She was always so annoying. And Queen Rutella is just so much better. Queen Rutella is one of the greatest Zelda babes of all time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The part I distinctly remember most about... Oh, I just realized I haven't even talked about the bosses in these things. Goma was kind of gross. We're backtracking here. Goma was... It's weird. Goma, like, as I mentioned in my Elden Ring playthroughs, I don't like bugs. Well, depending on the bug. Goma was clearly something trippy and not fun to look at, but at the same time, it never bothered me. Like, I could look at Goma no problem whatsoever, but then the certain Skulltulas that would jump scare you, those would give me the EBGBs. And then King Dodongo just rolls around and flattens you, you throw bombs into his mouth. That's pretty cool. But the mini-boss of effing Lord Jabu Jabu's belly, the big Octo, I hated that thing. It looked kind of like a mutant spider or something. And then it chased you around and you had to loop around it and hit it in the back. That wasn't fun. And then if I recall, the boss of Lord Jabu Jabu's belly was like this parasite thing. But again, it's been so long since I've... Yeah, it was the electric anemone thing. Yeah, this thing is... Oh man, this is disgusting. How did this game get away with the things it got away with back then? Different times, man. We might have our first contender for bad. And a big reason for that is all the babysitting you had to do with Princess Ruto. And just aesthetically, even though it's very unique, it's also very unpleasing to look at. I think we have our first bad. But on to what I consider one of the greatest Zelda dungeons of all time, and by far my favorite in Ocarina of Time, the Forest Temple. I cannot say enough good things about the Forest Temple. First of all, his music, as we're hearing right now, is phenomenal. One of the best songs in all of Zelda. Fitting for one of the best dungeons in all of Zelda. It's like, it's cool. You would think the Forest Temple would look something like Inside the Deku Tree. But no, it's like this gigantic castle that the inside has been completely overrun by forests, and yet you can still see the architecture of it. It is so ominous and broody as hell, but it's like, it has a strong air of mystery compared to, like, say, the Shadow Temple, which was just bleak and depressing. You got the 4 Poes you gotta hunt down. That was really cool. You gotta shoot their paintings. Oh man. It was such a cool mechanic that they did it again in Arbiter's Ground and Twilight Princess. It wasn't anywhere near as good, though. Forest Temple was just so wholly unique. And I always felt like that. And the song was the Poes sisters. I don't remember most of their names, but I know the boss one was Meg, the purple one. I recall they reappear in Majora's Mask. Like, you gotta chase him around a maze or something. Yeah, Joelle, Beth, Amy, and Meg. And then you get introduced to the Stalfos as the mini-boss, and I always call them the tap dancers. Just the way their feet are constantly moving about when they attack you. To me, that always stuck in my mind. Like, I always picture them dancing to, like, flamenco music. Which is really random and really weird, but that's always an image that's stuck in my head. Then, the long-ass twisting corridor, that was visually the shit. And to top it off, you have one of the coolest fights in all of the game, which is Phantom Ganon. Dude takes off his... Does he? I'm trying to remember. Does he start off wearing a Ganondorf mask and he removes it and you see the demon? I feel like it does that, but I also can't fully remember. I'm gonna play this game eventually for my channel. Though the extent of what kind of playthrough it'll be remains to be seen. Because I one day would like to do a game review of this game. And I'm gonna need footage for it. That footage is gonna be me playing. I'm getting ahead of myself. Having to figure out which of the paintings Phantom Ganon is coming out of is so freaking cool, and it added this sense of dread. This is like crap, rizzy, as you keep turning around trying to find him, and then he summons fakes too, I believe, at one point. Oh, such an amazing boss fight. I love the Forest Temple. Undisputed my favorite Ocarina of Time temple of all... Blah, blah, blah. Temple of all time. Moving on to the Fire Temple, which has a bit of controversy about it, and we'll get to it when it reaches that part of the song. So, the Forest Temple is located deep in the Kokiri Forest. The Fire Temple is located in the... Caldera, I believe it's called, of Death Mountain. Like, it has one of the coolest entrances leading up to it at all time. Where you're, like, just journeying into the freaking heart of the mountain. There's lava all around you. And if you don't have the Goron suit, you just melt to death. And then eventually you enter the Fire Temple itself. And it has, like, these 3... Oh, right here. This chanting is only in the N64 case. And even then, I believe it's limited to only a certain number of them. Like, the original core release games had that chanting. And then... You know what? I'm wondering if... Because, again, when I played this, it was on the GameCube, so it was already removed by then. I'm wondering if all N64 cartridges have it. I'm sure the experts of this game, my cousin included, Gumbel included, will probably know for sure. Was... Were all N64 games of Ocarina of Time, did they contain the chanting, and was it removed with the later releases like the GameCube? Let me know. Anyway, the things I remember most about the Fire Temple was like this giant boulder maze area. That was pretty nuts. And then the mini bosses were the flare dancers, the flame dancers, and they were pretty unique, all things considered. They were like just these fiery warrior beings that danced around, and you had to take them out. They didn't really have anything like that beforehand or since in the game. And then the final boss, freaking Mulgara. Wait, no. Mulgara's Wind Waker, my bad. What's freaking... I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on the name. But you fight his humanoid form. Volvagia, right. Even though it's technically not him / her, I'm pretty sure it's her in the manga. And then, actually in the manga, it's actually depressing as hell because it was Link's pet. And you eventually had to kill her because Ganondorf mind controlled her, so that's sad as hell. But yeah, there's a dude in Hyrule Warriors who's pretty much Volvagia. Even briefly turns into her in his Muso attack. But that boss fight was cool as hell. You gotta slam it in the face with your freaking Megaton hammer. Lost my train of thought. Because now I'm trying to remember the dude's name in Hyrule Warriors. Whatever. We gotta rank it. Fire Temple can go in... Ironically enough, I feel like maybe there wasn't enough fire in it. Because a lot of it was just mountainous terrain. So, I'm going to put Fire Temple in the meh category. Oh boy, okay. Not there yet, but we're getting there. Ice Cavern. The first mini dungeon. Wow, this music is dramatically louder than the other ones. I've turned it down a little bit. Ice Cavern, I feel like could have been its own actual temple. I don't know. I haven't played all the Zelda games. I've mostly played the mainline ones. So I've played Ocarina, Majora, Twilight, Wind Waker. Never played Skyward Sword, and then Breath of the Wild and Cheers. So I don't know if there's ever been an ice temple in Zelda. That would be pretty cool if there ever was one. And then an ice sage. I wonder what that would be. There's ice-themed dungeons, but never a full-on temple. Because there's the Snow Peaks in Twilight Princess. And then, for some reason, in Tears of the Kingdom, there's a wind temple, even though it's all snow-based, because Rito Village is frozen over. In a giant blizzard. My memories of the ice cavern were... I mean, you can see it in the picture right here. Dodging the little spike things on the ice skating rink, and you gotta navigate around it, but your traction is terrible because it's ice, duh. And then having to bottle fire and spill it over a frozen chest. Like, it was a very combat-light dungeon, but it did have white wolfos, which were cool. I always liked the wolfos. So, where am I going to put you? I can't put it in bad just because of how unique it is. Like, everything up to this point in Ocarina of Time were like shades of red, browns, and greens. Because even the freaking Lord Jabu Jabu's belly, that barely had any water in it at all. So there was not really any blues in that. It was primarily gory reds. Like, I want to put it in good just because of its uniqueness. But at the same time, it was also kind of filler. And there was no real boss to it. It was just a mini dungeon. This is giving me memories of the Crystal Palace in Paper Mario. This is tough. Because I feel like it's not bad enough to be meh and not good enough to be good. It's just super average. I'll leave it at the bottom of B just because of how unique it is. So let's go with that. Oh, God. And now we come to hell on earth. Jesus Christ. I want to make it a joke and just leave it there and not say anything else and just move on, but fuck, we have to talk about it. The Water Temple is undisputed the worst Zelda dungeon of all time. One of the worst levels of all time. This dungeon was a goddamn nightmare. Just hearing this music is pissing me off. And it was extra difficult for me because I inadvertently sequence broke my game. My Wind Waker guide, I still have it. The very end of my Wind Waker strategy guide comes with a complete guide for Ocarina of Time, which is pretty freaking cool. And I don't know, I guess at some point I misread something or I skipped something, but a small key that I got in the Water Temple I used on the wrong door and completely fucked my game. Because everything else at that point was locked off and I could not advance. So what I had to do was continue way, way down the path of the door I did unlock. Accidentally unlocked the wrong one again. And then I remember I had to... There was like a river section in a cave and it was full of the little water bugs. And I believe that was near the very end of the Water Temple. I had to go through that, and this was like early into the run of it, and get the key at the end of that, I think. And then I had to use that key somewhere else to continue the goddamn temple normally. So like I inadvertently went from being at like 35% done to unlocking what's practically the final area. Having to go through that and then all the way back just to get back on track. Like, it took me literally maybe 3 months to beat the goddamn Water Temple. And the overwhelming bulk majority of that was just me trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to go because I broke the game. And then, my own personal experiences aside, having to raise the water level back and forth, go back into your menu back and forth, equip the iron boots on and off. It's like, Jesus Christ. So much of the Water Temple was just wasting time. Absolutely horribly designed. And I know in the 3DS remake, they tried to alleviate that because you had the double screens. And you had your inventory on the bottom screen, so you could just equip it at any time without having to open the menus and navigate them and whatnot. But you still had to constantly change the water levels. Just an abysmal dungeon. A horrible experience all around. The only good thing about it is it has one of the coolest boss fights of all time, with the mini-boss being Dark Link. I've never fought in Dark Link properly. Because at least in the GameCube version, if you hit him with the Megaton Hammer, he gets stun locked, and then you can just continue wailing on him, and then he just dies. Like, you skip the entire having to duel your dark self aspect of it because he gets stun locked into oblivion. Which is freaking hilarious. But not even Dark Link can save this dungeon. Then the final boss is just an Mobius blob that you had a hook shot out of it and then wail on it. Apart from Dark Link, there is nothing redeemable about the Water Temple whatsoever. And I almost had goddamn PTSD when I saw that title pop up in Tears of the Kingdom. Thank God it was nowhere near as bad. Alright, here's where the game starts to get dark. Bottom of the well. My God. I remember, I think it's when you complete the bottom of the well and you accidentally release Bongo Bongo, which is a name that fills me with dread to this day. But holy crap. Like, you've seen... When do you do Dampé's race? Pretty sure it's leading up to the Shadow Temple. Because I think Dampé's race is the first part of the game. No, I'm tripping balls, because Castle Town is ruined and full of Redead, so that's when you first see them. But, like, there hasn't been yet, blah, 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 sorry, my tongue. There hasn't yet been a level that's dedicated to horror before the bottom of the well. Like, the Dongo's Cavern's creepy, inside the Deku Tree has some pretty dark implications, but nothing's been straight up horror, and then the bottom of the well is just freaking Silent Hill town. And then you're Young Link when you do it, so all the enemies are even bigger. And then the freaking boss of it is the Dead Hand. Oh, Jesus. I don't even want to know what a Dead Hand would look like in the era of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. That would be absolutely horrifying. But I can't put it too high, so it's going to be in good. I even put it over the Great Deku Tree. Because this was when the game took the gloves off and just went, alright, it's time to start screwing with the player. And I don't mean screwing in the way like the Water Temple did, as in screwing with, like, your mind and just trying to scare the crap out of you. Immediately following the bottom of the well, Shadow Temple, going in S tier. Jesus Christ. Like, as if the Shadow Temple itself wasn't bad enough. And it's the... Excluding the bottom of the well, which is the mini dungeon, it's the first proper hard... To my knowledge, because, I mean... All the Zelda games before this were all pixely, so it couldn't really be that scary. This was Zelda's first deep dive into proper horror. And then... Excluding the dungeon itself, the lore behind the Shadow Temple is so fucked. Like, it's the domain of the Sheikah, which, for all intents and purposes, were kind of like Hyrule's secret police. And then all the enemies of Hyrule they'd capture, they'd bring to the Shadow Temple to just brutally torture and interrogate, and then just fucking kill them. Like, I remember one of the plaques in the Shadow Temple says, "Here lies Hyrule's blood-stained history." And it's like a reminder that not everything was good and dandy in the land of Hyrule. Because the Sheikah were doing terrible, terrible things to people. All in the name of defending their country. Fucking hell. Like, there's blood splattered everywhere. There's a torture chamber, which I call the torture maze, which looks terrifying. Looks straight out of Silent Hill 4. Then there's all the rooms with the my tongue. God, how long is this recovery gonna last? With the giant death traps, like including the double Grim Reaper size spinning around the room. Fucking hell. I can't really say much about the mini-boss because it's just a dead hand again. And as an adult, you're way better equipped to deal with it, so it's whatever. But one of the areas I most distinctly remember the Shadow Temple was the ferry ride. That was nuts. And then, along the boat ride, you get ambushed by Stalfos all the time. Like a freaking... It's literally a boat ride through hell. Like, through the river Styx. Excuse me, gonna get some water. And then if you don't get off the boat in time, I'm pretty sure you die. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Let me know in the comments. And then the boss of the Shadow Temple, who's the most horrifying thing in all of Zelda, Bongo Bongo. It's like Lion King Mufasa. God, I hate Bongo Bongo. He just scared the bejeebus out of me when I was a kid. And it's like, looking back, it's like really nothing. now. I mean, he's got a giant pair of zombie hands and then a big ol' eye, which is like a very recurring enemy boss type in Nintendo games. But the lore behind Bongo Bongo, and none of this is like canon, it's mostly just theories, of how he was a thief who stole something from the royal family, and so the Sheikah caught him and just cut his hands off and then cut his head off. That's why his actual body's like missing a head and it's just a freaking eye, because they cut his head off. But also thematically, as a boss fight itself, it's so freaking cool. You're playing on a giant bongo, and like every time he beats on it, Link gets stuck jumping up and down on it. Really cool. Trying to remember, is there a floor outside of the bongo arena? I feel like there is, because you can get knocked off. And then I don't remember if you get automatically teleported back up, or if you gotta climb something, or if it's just instant death. I don't remember. But to this day, in my opinion, Bongo Bongo is probably the most unique enemy in all of Zelda. I mean, he's just a giant shadow demon zombie thing. Nothing's ever come close to that. Like, even Wind Waker was pretty kid-friendly. I mean, and that hard temple's boss was just a giant Poe with Jahala. Then Twilight Princess got really dark at points, but nothing ever got to the level of the Shadow Temple and Bongo Bongo. Zant was pretty messed up, though. Anyway, yeah. S tier, for sure. No doubt about it. Oops, we skipped ahead a bit there. Gerudo Training Grounds. When I was looking at this tier list for the first time, I was like, what the hell is this? Because like, it's not the Fire Temple, it's not the Dongo Cavern. The Gerudo Training Ground, it's a big... like, it's a legit dungeon. Unlike the Bottom of the Well, which could be done in, like, I don't know, like, maybe 10-15 minutes. You could not brute force your way through the Gerudo Training Grounds, because it was just trial after trial. And then... I'm trying to remember... you have to avoid being spotted before going into the dungeon or during it. I feel like the stealth section is the prelude to the actual training grounds, and then once you're inside, it's just a bunch of enemies and puzzles. But it's also kind of a whole lot of nothing. Like, it has a lot of... it's a quantity over quality thing, in my opinion. There's nothing really of note going on in there. Nothing really special happens. Not really overly challenging. It's just a gauntlet of sorts. So, I'll leave the Gerudo Training Ground at the bottom of Meh for now. And it reuses the Dongo Cavern's music. I was looking for the music for this level, and it's like, oh, right, it just reuses it. Anyway, moving on. I got a bit ahead of myself there. Good old Spirit Temple, S tier. It's funny, nothing in here so far has been... well, we'll get there. Like, nothing's an A tier at the moment. Nothing's great. They've either been good or freaking amazing. Oh, man, the Spirit Temple was awesome. Only temple in the game you gotta traverse as both kid and adult. And then Naburu's just chef's kiss. Naburu is love, Naburu is life. And then Urbosa came and just blew her out of the water. Urbosa is by far the best Gerudo chick. But I have loved Naburu. I had a crush on her when I was a kid. And it's just so unique. Like, on the outside, you're just going into, like, this giant statue. But the inside, you might as well be inside a pyramid. I've always loved desert-themed levels just because of the music of it. And the music of the Spirit Temple is no exception. It's absolutely phenomenal. Getting the mirror shields, which introduce a whole new aspect to the game where you gotta reflect light and stuff. I remember, because I beat Wind Waker way before I ever beat Ocarina of Time, and getting the Mirror Shield in Wind Waker, and then later getting it in Spirit Temple was like, oh, this is where they got it from. Okay, that's cool. Thank God there's no Redeads in the Spirit Temple. Pretty sure there are Gibdos, though. Were Gibdos introduced in Majora's Mask, or were they... Pretty sure there's Gibdos in the Spirit Temple. You'll have to correct me on that if I'm wrong. I vividly remember this one area was like a long, narrow passageway surrounded by the abyss on both sides, and like these creepy, ghostly statues would like fly up and shoot fireballs at you. I believe they were called Ras or Horus or something. They were called some Egyptian god. And you had to navigate that narrow path while avoiding getting hit by them. And just, I don't know, something about their appearance has always disturbed me. And I guess it makes sense because it's literally called the Spirit Temple. So yeah, it deals with the afterlife and stuff. Then the mini bosses, the Iron Knuckles, those were cool as hell. Pretty sure the Iron Knuckles were the preludes to the Dark Nuts. Or at least, because I know there was no Dark Nuts in Ocarina of Time. When did they first show up? Okay, they've been around since the start, but yeah, they didn't get a 3D appearance until Wind Waker when they were freaking Anubis Jackals, and probably my favorite Zelda enemies of all time, but I digress. Iron Knuckles were, if I recall, same deal with the Dark Nuts later on in other entries. They were armored as hell and super slow, and you had to attack them in the back to knock their armor off. But once you did that, they got a lot faster and a lot more aggressive, which is a formula the Dark Nuts and Wind Waker perfected. And then the final Iron Knuckle before you reach the final boss was Nabooru Brainwash. That was dark. I poor Nabooru, what do they do to you? And then the final boss is freaking Twin Robo, which was just amazing. I don't remember their names. I think one is Koime. Kume, right. Kotake and Kume. The adoptive mothers of Ganondorf. They're the one who raised him. It's a shame it's not really, that's never really explored in the game. Like, all you find out is that, yeah, they raised him and they're his most devoted followers. But it would have been cool if we further explored that aspect. It'd be really cool to see them come back in another game. I know they're in Majora's Mask, but they're just shop NPCs in that one. They're not even enemies. Man, it would have been rad to see Twin Rova in Tears of the Kingdom. That would have been freaking dope. Like, because in one of the cutscenes, we actively see Ganondorf leading the Gerudo as bad guys, which is nuts. I had to get some more water. My throat's not great because I was very, very, very happy and celebrating something earlier. My apologies. But the fight against Twin Robo was just fucking dope. Like, leading up to it, you got to deal with them one by one, bombarding you with ice and fire respectively, and then they merge into the giant Gerudo lady. Pretty foxy too. Twin Robo was great. I'd say, funnily enough, the three bosses of these top tier dungeons were all so goddamn unique and amazing. They just blow everything else out of the water. Like, excluding Phantom Ganon, who would appear in later entries, these three were just... because everything else beforehand was like just following the Zelda formula, you know? I mean, apart from the amoeba monsters, but I don't know if those are traditional Zelda stuff. But I mean, Fire Temple's just a dragon. The Dodongo Cavern's a giant Dodongo. Deku Tree Goma is just your classic Zelda insect monster. These three were just on a whole nother level. Blows all the other bosses out of the water. Bosses, my bad. Alright, getting to the grand finale. We finally have our first great. I have to dig through my memories very hard to refresh myself on Ganon's Tower. Because if I recall, it did a thing that Ganon's Tower tends to do. At least it did so in Wind Waker. It was a little different in Twilight Princess. Actually, it was dramatically different in Twilight Princess because Twilight Princess, it was Hyrule Castle. How it was like... What's the name? It's the dungeon that's everything you've learned up to this point put into use. And it had its various sections all representative of all the dungeons you've done beforehand. Like, it even had an ice cavern section, which was cool. But the thing that stood out to most of me is how you have to start at the bottom and just slowly work your way to the top. It's like the Gerudo Training Grounds, but on crack. Ganon's Tower is what the Gerudo Training Grounds wishes it could be. And then, this was the start of Ganondorf levels always having his theme playing in the background. And then whenever I get to doing the ranking of Twilight Princess dungeons, how the Hyrule Castle theme, the more you progress, slowly turned into Ganondorf's theme. Oh my god, that was freaking amazing. And it started here. Though back then it was just... The lower levels had their own music, and then once you got to the higher levels, it was this, what you're hearing right now. I can't speak on the earlier games, but I haven't played them. I think one of the games beforehand had a Dead Man's Volley boss. It was probably against Ganon, I wouldn't be surprised. But playing Dead Man's Volley against Ganondorf was freaking cool. And then, how you can even do it without your sword, you can just do it with an empty bottle, that's hilarious. But I remember his arena's like a central platform surrounded by void. You play the Dead Man's Volley, you eventually crack him, and then you jump onto the central platform to wail on him. Or you could just shoot him with a light arrow, question mark? I don't fully remember. But then you beat him, and then you gotta hurry up and get to the timed part of the... I believe it's timed. Because the whole tower starts coming down, and you gotta escape with Zelda. And then when you finally do manage to escape, I remember there being redeads on the bridge just before you got out of there, like just there, just like deliberately delay you. I hated that. And then the final boss of it all, Ganon himself. The first time we see Ganon in 3D, in my opinion, was until Twilight Princess came along. This was the coolest design of Ganon ever seen. But then again, Twilight Princess introduced Dark Beast Ganon. So we haven't yet seen, like, demonic form Ganon in any of the games since. Because I guess he just got replaced by Dark Beast Ganon. But it was a really freaking cool design. How just like a giant demonic boar dude. And then like he has his swords and they start off hella small. And then as the cutscene progresses, they get slowly bigger and bigger. That was funny. And then you gotta hit him by hitting him in the tail. You gotta hit him in the ass, I believe. Which makes him drop. And then you gotta slam him on his face. Just... I mean, there's a reason Ocarina of Time is considered one of the best games of all time. I mean, so many Zelda games are considered among the best of all time. But Ocarina of Time was the blueprint. Like, the absolute perfect blueprint of how the Zelda series should have gone forward. I hope it goes back to it. As much as I love Breath of the Wild, and I didn't like Tears nearly as much. because it was a copy job. Yeah, they introduced the Sky Islands I didn't care about. They introduced the Underground, which I also didn't really care about. But I hope the next Zelda game is a proper Zelda dungeon game, because I'm really over the whole micro dungeons with the shrines. Ugh. I cannot stomach doing another 300 of those whenever the next entry comes about. But Ocarina of Time as a whole was just, start to finish, an absolute joy to play. A game I definitely will remember for the rest of my life. I mean, everybody who plays it will. Closing thoughts. What order do I want to put these in? I'm pretty pleased. I don't think I need to change anything. These are all in the perfect order. The Shadow Temple, I like. It's like, I want to tentatively say I like the Spirit Temple more because it's not just hardcore horror. But the Shadow Temple to me just has this dread fascination to it. It's like, you can't look away and you're just intrigued and you want to know more despite how horrifying it is. Forest Temple was perfection. You know what would be really cool? Seeing Ocarina of Time remade, like proper remade, not the shinier. Well, I mean, because freaking, what am I? The 3DS. I don't want to call it a ring. That is a giant fucking spider to my left. Holy crap! It's Goma. It wants revenge. I gotta deal with this spider before it gets out of my sight. I would like to see a remake of Ocarina of Time. Like, not just the same game. Like the Resident Evil remake. Give it the Resident Evil remake treatment, where it's like a full proper remake, where it's a brand new game. It's still Ocarina of Time, but it's a brand new game. Alright. That's gonna be it for me. Happy birthday, dude. Love you. Hope you've been doing alright. And until next time, everybody. Perfect timing to exit with the song. This is PJ. Signing off.